Karl Lagerfeld, story of boldness, fashion, and creativity. Karl Lagerfeld, a name that echoes across generations, embodying the very heartbeat of fashion with bold vision and fearless innovation. His extraordinary career spanned nearly a century, navigating stylistic shifts and seismic changes, rising as an undisputed pillar of both 20th and 21st century fashion. Karl Lagerfeld was not merely a designer. He was a daring visionary, able to reinvent fashion from its 20th century roots to the digital age. With unstoppable energy and ever-evolving creativity, Karl poured a unique, unmistakable touch into every creation, leaving an indelible mark on every fashion house he helped shape. With an open mind and boundless creativity, Karl Lagerfeld journeyed through decades of fashion history, leaving an indelible mark on every collection, every runway, every moment of his career. He was far more than a designer. He was a photographer, a creative director, and above all, a living legend who had the power to transform everything he touched. His collaborations with iconic brands like Fendi, Chanel, and his own namesake label didn't just shape trends. They redefined the industry, elevating fashion from a mere style statement to a true form of contemporary art. Karl Lagerfeld isn't just a fashion icon. He's the embodiment of an era defined by radical transformation, much of which he shaped himself with boldness, brilliance, and an endless passion for beauty and innovation. Get ready to dive into the life and legacy of a man who lived and breathed fashion like no one else, leading it through the decades with unmatched elegance and relentless determination. But behind the legend lies a story few truly know. Before diving into the extraordinary story of Karl Lagerfeld, I invite you to subscribe to this YouTube channel, Quotes of Style. Here, you'll find the most fascinating and inspiring stories from the world of fashion, along with quotes that have defined eras and icons. Click the subscribe button and activate the notification bell so you won't miss any of the exclusive videos coming your way. Thank you. Now, let's step into Karl Lagerfeld's world and discover how his visionary mind, his bold creativity, and his unmistakable sense of style reshaped fashion, turning every collection into a statement and every gesture into timeless art. Karl Otto Lagerfeld was born on September 10, 1933, in Hamburg, Germany, into a wealthy and culturally refined family. His father, Otto Lagerfeld, was a successful businessman in the condensed milk industry, while his mother, Elisabeth Ballmann, was a violinist. Karl grew up in a privileged environment, surrounded by art, music, and intellectual conversation. Even as a child, Karl displayed a remarkable fascination with fashion, so much so that at just 4 years old, he asked his mother for a shirt and tie as a gift. His mother, a powerful and sharp-witted figure in his life, had a strong, often sarcastic personality. It's said that one day, seeing little Karl dressed in formal wear, she quipped, "If you want to look like an old gentleman, by all means, keep going." In 1952, at just 14 years old, Karl moved to Paris, the city that would become his true home and the starting point of his legendary fashion journey. He enrolled at Lycée Montaigne, focusing on drawing and history. It was a pivotal time in his life, a formative chapter where young Lagerfeld sharpened his artistic skills and developed a refined, sophisticated eye for aesthetics. Karl Lagerfeld's first big break came when he won the prestigious Wollmark Prize, a victory that threw open the doors of the fashion world and instantly marked him as one of the most promising young talents of his time. But no one could have imagined just how far that talent would take him. It was 1954 when Karl Lagerfeld entered the Wollmark Prize, a prestigious design competition organized by the International Wool Secretariat. He won in the coat category, while another young contender, Yves Saint Laurent, took home the prize for cocktail dresses. That recognition marked the true beginning of Karl's journey into the fashion world. It caught the eye of none other than Pierre Balmain, one of the greatest couturiers of the time, who hired him as an assistant. And just like that, a legendary career was set in motion, one that would go on to redefine the very fabric of fashion history. Karl Lagerfeld's years at Balmain were absolutely essential to his growth. There, he mastered tailoring techniques and honed his keen aesthetic sense, letting his creativity shine and laying the groundwork for an extraordinary career. After 3 years, he was promoted to artistic director at Maison Jean Patou. But by 1963, he grew weary of crafting formal wear for a very exclusive clientele. Choosing to become a freelance prêt-à-porter designer was bold. Some even saw it as risky. Yet Karl had already sensed the shifting tides of fashion and was determined to follow his own path, away from the traditional fashion houses. In 1964, Karl Lagerfeld left France and moved to Italy, driven by a desire to deepen his passion for art history. This chapter became a turning point in his creative journey, fueling a restless, insatiable mind that hid behind a facade of composure. His imagination never stopped stirring, and it's no surprise that he soon began working as a freelance designer for various fashion houses. From 1964 to 1983, and again between 1992 and 1997, he designed collections for Chloe, infusing the brand with his unmistakable touch. At the same time, he collaborated with Crizia, Valentino, and legendary shoemaker Charles Jourdan. And still, Karl was only just beginning to reshape the world of fashion. Karl Lagerfeld's encounter with Chloe marked the beginning of a fashion revolution. He introduced a bold new design language, one that blended elegance with modernity. His collections for Chloe quickly became iconic, transforming the brand into a symbol of refinement and innovation. And with every season, Karl pushed the boundaries of what fashion could be. In 1967, Karl Lagerfeld's career took a decisive turn when he was invited by Fendi to breathe new life into the brand's fur line. This moment marked the beginning of a collaboration that would span more than half a century. Lagerfeld didn't just transform Fendi's furs, he also created the now iconic double F logo, a tribute to his playful spirit and innovative vision. He coined it Fun Fur, redefining luxury with wit, creativity, and a fresh take on tradition. This partnership with Fendi became one of the cornerstones of his career, cementing his status as an undisputed master of fashion. But even as he conquered one house after another, Lagerfeld's boldest challenge was still to come. Karl Lagerfeld transformed Fendi into a global symbol of luxury and innovation. With his singular vision, he introduced new materials and cutting-edge techniques, completely redefining what fur could be. His creative legacy helped elevate Fendi into a worldwide fashion icon. And yet, Lagerfeld's journey was far from over. By the 1970s and early 1980s, Karl Lagerfeld had already left an indelible mark on the fashion world through his collaborations with iconic brands like Fendi and Chloe. His ability to reinvent fashion and stay ahead of trends made him one of the most sought-after and respected designers of his generation. But Lagerfeld's career was about to enter a whole new chapter, one that would redefine everything. 1983. The fashion world was watching. A legendary brand, Chanel, was losing its voice, drifting into the shadows of its own past. Elegant, yes. Iconic, always. But to many, Chanel had become a museum piece, trapped in the memory of Coco, no longer shaping the future. Then came Karl Lagerfeld. With one appointment, everything was about to change. Karl Lagerfeld, however, didn't see Chanel as a legacy to be preserved. He saw untapped potential. With bold vision and fearless innovation, he set out to fuse the brand's glorious past with a fresh, modern perspective. Under his creative direction, Chanel wasn't just revitalized, it was transformed into a global powerhouse. Lagerfeld had a mission: to make Chanel forever young, forever desirable. And with every collection, every show, he did just that. He masterfully blended tradition and modernity, breathing new life into the house without ever betraying Coco Chanel's legacy. Thanks to him, Chanel entered a new era of brilliance and relevance, reclaiming its place as one of the most powerful and influential fashion houses in the world. In the midst of this extraordinary transformation, Karl Lagerfeld himself became as iconic as the brand he had revived. His signature look, dark sunglasses, white ponytail, black leather gloves, was more than just personal style. It became a symbol of a complex, untouchable persona. Every detail of his appearance spoke of control and precision, values he turned into his own trademarks. He wasn't merely a designer, he was a living icon, a man who embodied the very same boldness and innovation he had infused into the House of Chanel. But behind that impenetrable facade, there was a very different Karl Lagerfeld, a man with curious habits and a razor-sharp sense of humor that revealed itself in the most unexpected moments. Picture him in a meeting, surrounded by an extravagant spread of pastries and sweets. Not because he intended to eat them. His diet was strict, almost ascetic, but simply for the pleasure of offering them to others. As if to say, "You indulge, I resist." That contrast between strict discipline and playful irony was just one of the many layers that made Karl Lagerfeld utterly one of a kind. And then, there was his passion for photography. It wasn't unusual to see him behind the camera, personally shooting the ad campaigns for the brands he worked with. A gesture that revealed not just his artistic talent, but his deep desire to control every single detail of his creations. That same meticulous spirit drove him to collect over 300,000 books, a towering library that became the sanctuary of his boundless intellectual curiosity. Karl Lagerfeld was a man of contrasts, constantly balancing austerity with a refined sense of aesthetic pleasure. Legend has it, he was a devoted Diet Coke drinker, downing up to 10 cans a day. And to ensure every sip was at the perfect temperature, he even had a dedicated assistant just for that. A detail that reveals his almost obsessive need for control, but also his gift for turning even the simplest routine into a flawless ritual. But among all of Karl Lagerfeld's passions, the most tender and heartfelt was reserved for Choupette, his beloved Burman cat. Choupette wasn't just a pet. She was his constant companion, pampered with a love and care that mirrored his devotion to perfection. She had 2 personal maids and thousands of fans on Instagram. She lived in a world of luxury, fit for royalty. Karl often joked that if it were possible, he would have married her. This genuine affection for Choupette revealed a softer, more affectionate side of Karl. A man who, behind the stern image, held a heart capable of deep, devoted love. Though Karl Lagerfeld was a public figure, his private life remained shrouded in mystery. He never married. He had no children. His life was entirely devoted to his work. His greatest love was Jacques de Bacher, a French dandy known for his charm and glamorous lifestyle. Their relationship lasted nearly 2 decades, until Jacques passed away in 1989. Lagerfeld never hid the pain of that loss. But true to his nature, he kept his legendary discretion and rarely spoke about his romantic life in public. Even after Jacques' death, Karl never sought out another partner. Instead, he poured himself entirely into his career and passions. Karl Lagerfeld spent his entire life in Paris. But for him, Paris was more than just a city. With its timeless elegance and cultural vibrancy, Paris was both a muse and a sanctuary. It was the perfect backdrop for his creativity, a place where tradition met innovation, where fashion was born on every corner. Its streets, its historic cafes, they witnessed some of his boldest, most revolutionary ideas come to life. And it was in Paris, on February 19, 2019, that Karl Lagerfeld passed away at the age of 85, leaving behind an irreplaceable void in the fashion world. The news of his death sent shockwaves through the entire industry and touched millions of fans around the globe. His funeral, held in private, was attended by only a few close companions, those who had shared his world the most intimately. Friends, longtime collaborators, and fellow creatives came together to honor a man who was not only a genius of style, but a central figure in their lives. Though the ceremony was discreet, his impact was felt everywhere, with messages of sorrow and heartfelt tributes pouring in from those who had the privilege to work with him or simply be inspired by his unmistakable brilliance. After his death, exhibitions dedicated to Karl Lagerfeld began traveling the globe, offering a deep and intimate look into his career and boundless creativity. Held in some of the world's most prestigious museums, these showcases gave the public a rare opportunity to admire his work up close, to witness the artistry, and to feel the energy behind his vision. The story of Karl Lagerfeld is one of boundless genius, bold vision, and fearless reinvention, a legacy that redefined the very edges of fashion and creativity. From the moment he set foot in Paris to his transformation of Chanel into a global empire, Lagerfeld showed an unparalleled gift: the ability to see beyond the ordinary and to reimagine the classic as something eternally modern. He captured the essence of the past and projected it into the future, leaving behind a legacy that still inspires and captivates the world. And so we conclude this tribute to Karl Lagerfeld, a true visionary who didn't just follow trends, he created them. With boldness and relentless creativity, he redefined the world of fashion on his own terms. But Lagerfeld's impact went far beyond the runway. He left an indelible mark on contemporary culture itself. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the life and legacy of a genius like no other. Stay tuned to Quotes of Style to keep discovering the stories of those who, like Karl Lagerfeld, changed the world with their unmatched vision. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next story.